And welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. On this podcast, we're going to talk about the Federal Reserve System and the organization of the system. First of all, remember I said in a previous video that the United States has a fiat system with regards to money. So we have money that is not backed by anything. Well, real. Real isn't quite the word there. I should probably say maybe anything physical. There's not. It is backed by something real, and that is the abstract concept that people accept our fiat money in exchange for goods and services. So I mean that's real in some sense, but I guess nothing maybe concrete. There's not gold behind it. There's not fish hooks behind it. There's not whatever things that you could use, commodity money that you could use for something other than buying goods and services. So we have a fiat system. There's nothing kind of real or concrete that you could hold in your hands behind it. So who's in control of this fiat system, this M1 and M2 money that floats out there in the economy, that we carry around as pieces of paper, that we hold as checking accounts or savings accounts in the bank? Who's in control of all of this? Is anybody? And the answer is yes. The Federal Reserve, or the Fed, as it's called, which is it's not really quite a national bank, but for lack of a better term, it's kind of like a national bank or a central bank for the United States, and it oversees that should be an E right there. It oversees the banking system and regulates the quantity of money in the economy, and we'll talk about those things in detail in a future podcast, but I just want to give some of the history and institutional structure. First of all, it was created in 1914, following the crisis of 1907. So just like we had a crisis in 2009, there was a crisis in 1907, and this eventually led to the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1914. It is run by the Board of Governors, and these are the group of people that run the Federal Reserve, and they are appointed by the President and get Senate approval in order to be on that Board of Governors. They have a 14-year term, and the goal of that is to give them a lot of independence so that they are not influenced by politics. So we don't want these guys to be influenced by politics. We want them to have independence so that they can just make good, sound decisions with regards to our money supply. There are seven members on this Board of Governors, and the chairman of the Board of Governors serves a 4-year term, and that is currently a person by the name of Janet Yellen. I'll show her in a second. These are the previous two chairmen of the Federal Reserve. So this guy is Alan Greenspan, and he was chairman during the late Reagan administration, probably 86, 87, something like that, until I would say maybe early to mid 2000s. He was during the beginning of the George W. Bush administration. And then Ben Bernanke, who was the chairman of the Federal Reserve during the financial crisis. And we'll show you Janet Yellen here in a second. And the Federal Reserve System includes 12 regional banks that support the Federal Reserve Bank. So, okay, let's remove this. So, first of all, this is Janet Yellen, and she is the current chairperson of the Federal Reserve, chairwoman of the Federal Reserve, I guess. And she's in control of these 7 members who make up the Board of Governors. She serves a 4-year term within her 14-year term as chairperson of the Board of Governors, and the Board of Governors oversees this Federal Reserve System, and there are 12 regional banks that are all under this system. So the Reserve Bank of Chicago, Cleveland, Philadelphia, Richmond, Atlanta, they all have responsibilities over different regions, and they help the United States Federal Reserve System to carry out various different policies. So just the big idea here, just to give a little bit of history in the institutional structure, but the big idea is that these guys are in charge of overseeing the banking system, and they're in charge of overseeing the money supply. And as a result of that, we don't want them to be influenced by politics. And so as a result of that, they have these very long terms that are designed to keep them independent of the political pressures of the day. So that's kind of the goal of the system. All right, there's been another podcast with Mr. Hagan, and on a future podcast, we'll talk a little bit more about the Federal Reserve and how they carry out their two jobs. All right, thanks for joining me. It's Mr. Hagan. See you on the next podcast.